Safari Live. We're in the Masai Mara watching lions, and my name is Ralph Kirsten, and on the camera we have Archie. Say hello, Archie. That's Archie's thumb, yes it is. Please join us on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and on the YouTube live chat. It is a very warm 78 degrees Fahrenheit, 36 degrees centigrade. Luckily, however, we've got a little bit of a breeze coming through, so cooling us down slightly. But one special word of welcome to Hanover School that will be joining us a little bit later. But for the time being, we have been driving around the whole afternoon, Archie and I, since this morning's game drive, in search of some lions. And I tell you, literally 10 minutes before we've gone on show, we found these lions, and the only reason we did find them was because there were some vultures up in the tree. And I was having a look at some of the vultures, and then started to drive off, and Archie said, "Ralph, didn't you see those cats?" And I was like, "Where?" And he was like, "On the ground." So we came back, we had a look, we found now quite a few of them. It seems like there are some that have drifted off into the shade, and they are at quite a distance. But I can tell you that this is really the prize after the whole day's searching for them. We're very happy to have found some lions and some cats for us. Alright, so folks, I'm going to sit here. We're going to try and see if we can maybe get a little bit closer to these lions. We're going to see maybe these vultures are indicating that there is a kill around, and we're going to try and see if we can follow up a little bit on that. But in the meantime, let's send you across to Taylor, who has also just started her game drive.
Hello everybody, good afternoon and welcome to the Sunset Safari. How exciting. My name is Taylor McCurdy and on camera with me today is Manu. Now the reason why I'm blitzing down the highway this afternoon is because the traffic is piling up at 3:30 in the afternoon here in the Mara Triangle, and there's a couple of cars that are very sneakily zipped in front of. However, if I stop, they will catch up to me and then we will eat their dust for the rest of the afternoon. So what we are going to do is we're going to head down this main road. We're going to keep going down this main road unless we see something exciting, because I would like to do a leopard search today. I don't know how you all feel about it, but I feel as though I need some spots in my life. It can be in the form of a hyena, in the form of a cheetah, or perhaps and hopefully the shepherd tree male leopard. That's who I'm really hoping to see. Now if you have just joined us for the first time on Safari Live, well, welcome, and hopefully you become an addict like the rest of the Safari Live fans. So this is a live and interactive show, so you can talk to us. All you have to do is hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can also talk to us via the YouTube chat, and you can ask us anything that you'd like to know about the animals, about going on a safari. Actually, you can really just ask us anything and we'll try our best to answer whatever questions come our way. And guess what? It's windy. Woo! Now, Mia, you're wondering what is the soil structure of the road that I'm driving on? I'm not even going to be able to tell you, and the reason why I'm not going to be able to tell you is this is not the original soil that's been deposited here. After the last few days watching how they do the roads, they're putting different types of materials. So what they do is they come through and they actually grade the road, make it flat, get rid of all the big rocks, and then they start bringing in truckloads of gravel, then sand, then more gravel and more sand, and they do layer upon layer. So in this area, it actually doesn't look like cotton soil. It's got quite a, I'm just looking what's growing up on the side. And sorry, my friend Jeffrey just passing by. Here's the oh, you didn't see him. We just chatted to him before we watched the Hammerkop building their nest this morning. And so yeah, so this is a little bit more sandy here, not quite the black cotton soil that we're used to driving around on. And I would assume then that the road would be of a similar sort. But don't look at it, and yeah, I don't know where they've got it from. Probably from that dam that I showed you the other afternoon when we were playing the Jurassic Park theme song. And there were hippos in that pan, and I said that this was actually created because they were using it as a quarry, and it's just filled up with water. And there's quite a bit of iron in the soil too. So that's where you get that reddish color from. It's just the oxidation process. But like I said, not the original soil that occurs here. It's something completely different. But I'm not really sure. We need Steph here. He's so great at geology, and he'd be very, very good at giving you a proper breakdown. But he's coming back too. So maybe you'll get a chance to ask him that question. So we're going to keep racing down to the territory of the shepherd tree male leopard, and hopefully we'll find him. Rolf is with the lions. I wonder if he's discovered if there's a carcass.
Thanks, Taylor. Well, we haven't discovered the carcass just yet. What we are trying to discover is a road that leads us close to, or if not far from, the lions. So in the meantime, I think because we know that it's quite hot and we are going to be coming back and taking this road, I think we'd be silly not to take up an opportunity to stop in with these elephants in front. And there's also 2 pairs of crowned cranes doing a little bit of a dance, and there's also a buffalo that's just stood up next to them, which we will all see in good time. But there is all sorts happening here, and there's giraffe in the background. It's a very big aggregation of animals. So sometimes when you are on a mission to find lions, you can find everything but. And before we did find those lions, we knew just about everywhere where they weren't, and luckily Archie spotted them on the ground. Now, lovely to watch these crowned cranes. For me, it is a real special treat because they are very rare. Mrs. Zero, you're commenting exactly what I'm thinking. These are very beautiful, these crowned cranes. And as I was saying, it's a very special treat for me because down the east coast of South Africa, which is where I live, is one of the places where we should have the biggest population in South Africa of these birds, but we've had a lot of habitat destruction because they like to breed in and around these sort of marshy areas and in the coastal plains where it comes down towards the sea and the rivers, and that's a lot of areas where people have built holiday homes and developed, so to the destruction of the crowned crane's nesting habitat. So we are losing a lot of them, but I can tell you that in the Masai Mara there's a lot of them around. You can't drive very far without seeing a pair of crowned cranes at the moment. And in the background there you've got a lovely herd of elephants also enjoying the lovely marsh. Now Ben, you're wondering if birds like the crowned crane ever interbreed. I'm not sure on the viability of cranes between them. You know, when we were studying, what we came down to was the definition of a species was the ability of 2 individuals to breed and have viable offspring. And if it was a mix between 2 different species and they could breed and have viable offspring, which would then be able to have viable offspring of their own, that was then termed a subspecies, or when a species then became defined from another one. Now, I've never heard of any crossbreeding of cranes, but I'm sure it's not impossible. Like what you have with, for instance, the mallard ducks, which I believe come from Europe, and they're an ornamental duck, and a lot of European people in general like to bring them, you know, into South Africa. You know, obviously they now live here, as South Africans, but they like to bring those ornamental ducks onto our river systems because, you know, it's nice to have them as pets in your garden, and then they might escape onto the river, and they interbreed with the yellow-billed duck. And the male mallard is larger than the yellow-billed duck, so he chases the male mallard away and then breeds with the female. And the young are then sterile. So there is interbreeding, but to the point where it stops right there. And what happens then is then you have the loss of numbers of yellow-billed ducks. And that can lead to massive drop in numbers in their natural populations. So I would hope that there's not any exotic cranes that are brought in an attempt to breed. Now, Jane, you're wondering, do crowned cranes mate for life? I do know that they are monogamous, and I'm pretty sure that they will maintain a partner for life if the other partner does not die. But if the other partner does for some reason get killed or eaten or dies, I know that they will attempt to take on another partner. Now, I am obviously stand corrected, but that is just what I know about the crowned cranes. So that is a lovely little setting that we've had there. I'm going to start and drive towards the lions. Now, Kevin, you're wondering how tall are those crowned cranes? They're probably around 3 foot tall or so. When they stand upright, they probably take me up to my waist. So they're not small, they're not tiny, they are rather large birds. And when they're walking on the plains, they're quite significant, and you can spot them from quite a way off, especially with their lovely crown, that yellow crown that they have on the head, and then the sort of greyish blue colour with the white and yellow, very distinct coloration. Now, the one for me that is also quite special is the national bird of South Africa, the blue crane, which is slightly smaller than the crowned crane, but and he's also got a little bit of a longer tail, but also quite special in that. And it's on, I think it's on the 5-cent piece, the South African rands. But a lot of the African monies is also printed with African animals and birds and mammals, etc. So I'm going to try and change our position, get a little bit closer to these lions, maybe see the carcass and the vultures. In the meantime, let's go over to Taylor, who I think is also driving around.
We're blowing around in the wind at the moment. Manu's sitting out like he's sun tanning, like he should be on the beaches. It's tie-dye, and we'll have to get Manu to show you at some point. It's actually quite nice. I also want one like that. So we're still on our way to the area, although funny enough that the shepherd tree male leopard has got a massive territory. I mean, Brent has had him all the way down here, Scott's had him down here as well, like basically further northeast of, well, than where Hippo Pools is, which is quite far, because typically he's quite far to the west. So I'm keeping an eye out of gatherings of cars. I haven't seen anything just yet. We're still on the lookout, but eventually we'll get to a sign still a little bit further down called Ngiyare, and then we'll take the next grassy track west. Now, Joy in Hong Kong, you're wondering if I visited the shepherd's tree where the shepherd tree male had a giraffe kill up it. No, I didn't actually even know where that kill was. But I suspect it's the same areas that we're going to be looking. The only thing though is, again, the grass really messes us around a little bit, because when the grass is nice and short, you can see where all the animals are, sitting under the shade of the balanites trees or the gardenias, but now the grass is surrounding them. There's still almost like a grazing patch though, just around the tree, but about a couple of meters circumference around it, then the grass gets quite tall again, and that makes it virtually impossible. So you almost have to drive off road to get to those little openings and check every single tree, which would be, that would take forever. I mean, like, have a look here. Sorry, I can't brake quick enough. It actually looks like this tree has been used as a rubbing post. Can you see? Oh, sorry, Manu, the car's gear's not catching. But if you see it towards the bottom of the trunk of the tree, there's a bit of mud that's actually been wiped up on the trunk, and that's most likely from elephants, that's probably from rhinos, from buffalo. At that height though, I'm going to say it's from the elephants. It goes up probably about as tall as what I am, and then you might see some other marks from the bigger elephants rubbing up there, but just below on the base you can see how much shorter the grass is in comparison to how tall it stands behind. So you've really got to get in there to try and have a look. So that's the kind of difficulties we are working with at the moment, but we try and we seem to be doing alright. In reverse without having to go and arrange. Right. So we'll keep checking though, because we've got Richard on board with us. He's our Askari this afternoon and he's got the most amazing eyesight, so hopefully he'll spot some cats for us. I am going to send you back into Rolf's car. He's got my favorite bird of all time.
Well, a favorite bird indeed. It is an absolute stunning bird at that. This being the secretary bird, because of the elegant way that it seems to have been dressed. In French they call it a serpentaire, which literally means the snake hunter, which it definitely does do. And it walks around like that, and when it does spot something normally reptilian-like, it clenches its talons and punches the prey to death, and then will grab it and rip it to pieces with the very sharp bill. So a very elegant bird, but also very feisty. And there's a few of them around in the grassy plains. You find them in very similar habitat to that of Corey bustards and similar to that of crowned cranes, although these secretary birds more so on a hard ground or substrate, because they need the reptiles to be moving around. Almost specialist reptile hunters. Now, Sherry from Rhode Island, you've commented that, wow, this is a beautiful bird and you've never seen one like that before. Well, I'm very glad to have shown you that, Sherry, because they are actually reasonably common in specific areas. So it's always confusing because it can be locally common, but when we say that, it sometimes is only around specific small little areas. But in those areas you would find a lot of them. Now, it is possible to see quite a lot of secretary birds around the Masai Mara and the plains, in the grasslands, and areas like Etosha, and actually right through the savanna biome. We can see quite a lot of them. So once again, I've been trying to get around to a better sighting of the lions, and we've just spotted the secretary bird on the way through, but we're still going to continue with that plan. Now, Judy, you were wondering why is it called a secretary bird? Judy, if you have a look at how the secretary bird actually looks, it looks like it's got almost leggings on, and it walks like it's walking on high heels, and a little bit of a nice looking sort of blouse on, if you can imagine that, with a very well how would you say, looked after hair, and got lovely makeup on as well. So it's the full secretary, and please don't take that as being sexist. It is just the way that the bird looks, that it does remind you of a very well-dressed secretary. So that's the only reason. But as I say in French, serpentaire being the snake hunter. Now, JW, you were wondering how, if that is how, I didn't quite get the word in between there, so I'm just going to ask the FC to say that to me again. You wondered if that's how the dinosaur looked. Well, I'm pretty sure it probably wouldn't have looked as pretty as that. That secretary bird being very well groomed. So, I do have my doubts that we're going to get a road going anywhere closer to these lions, but nevertheless, we do know where they are. I'm sure they're not going to move, and while we do try our luck for a little route going in towards them, we might find something else pretty special. And the reason why in this particular area you're not allowed to go off-road is because there's a lot of black cotton soils, and so the management of this Mara Triangle, especially here in this marshy sort of area, if you go off-road, it's very sensitive to tire tracks, and it can really harm this particular region. So we don't drive off-road here, we stick to the worn paths, and as you can see here in front, once people start making new tracks, they can stay there for an extended period of time, many years, when you drive through black cotton soils. And once we head a bit further west from here, it becomes a lot drier, and it's not so susceptible to damage the area if you drive off-road. So that's why we would be potentially following kills or anything special that's off-road in that southwestern area, as I did when there was a little bit of a lion kill on a warthog with the elephant chasing it off. Now, Ken, you're wondering if those crowned cranes are called crowned cranes or crested cranes. Well, Ken, that's a good question, because it is quite it's more of a crest than a crane, and they do change the names of these birds very frequently, so please excuse me if they have changed the name and I haven't picked it up, but as far as I know, it is called the crowned crane, but it is a crowned crested crane, if you ask me. But well picked up there, Ken. And no, Archie, I think this road is taking us quite far away. Ooh, hello. There's a little bird that I would like to show you. Archie, can you pick that bird up over there? Alright, now there is a very pretty little bird over there, and if you've never seen this bird before, this is called a lilac-breasted roller. Now, very predominant here in the Masai Mara, but you find them all throughout the savannah, and it's a very pretty bird. It doesn't have a very pretty call, but it is the national bird of Botswana. And in Afrikaans, they call it a troupunt. Now, I have told this story before, but while we're looking at it, I might as well say it again. A troupunt in Afrikaans, very descriptive, it means a wedding band. And in the old days, with the voortrekkers at the turn of the 19th century, they were moving up through the areas of southern Africa on their ox wagons, and their families would not see each other often. And I hear now from Faith that it's also the national bird of Kenya. Wow, I didn't know that. I thought that we had something different, but thanks, Faith. Now I've learned something new on this drive already. So the Afrikaners would be going up with their ox wagons, and they were moving through the areas. They wouldn't go through towns or anything like that for extended periods of time. And if they met a girl that they would like to wed at some stage, they would give her the feather of the lilac-breasted roller, because it was so beautiful. You'll see on some of the feathers you can get colors of lilac, purple and pink and white, and all on one little feather. So a very pretty little bird, and that feather was then the token of a lady being spoken for. And once they got then to a little town, the person that had asked for the lady's hand in marriage could then buy her a ring. But in all the old photos, if you saw a lady standing with a lilac-breasted roller's feather in her pocket, she was spoken for. And it went so far that, you know, I asked my wife, she is now my wife, but at the time I asked for her hand in marriage through the post, and I sent her a feather of the lilac-breasted roller from South Africa to Scotland, and lucky for me, she accepted. But it was a true African way of asking her for her hand in marriage. The lilac-breasted roller. Okay, so you see what I mean. When we're driving along, we're looking for one thing in particular. It normally happens that then we start finding everything else popping up around us. Now, thank you, Mrs. Zero, for commenting that that's a special story. Well, I think so, and thank you that you think so too, Mrs. Zero. Another little lilac-breasted roller around, and they've got a real squawk to them. Their call is actually not very nice at all. Okay, so I think we're going to try work our way along a little bit longer, otherwise we're going to turn around and go back towards these lions. But in the meantime, let's go over to Taylor and see what she is up to.
Well, our plans still haven't changed, still got the same thing. I'm just looking for my road, but I feel like it's overgrown now. It's become overgrown. Ah, here it is. So we've just passed in our sign, which is good. And now we need to turn on up here. I don't know what these roads are going to be like. Every time I have driven them before, they haven't been fantastic. They've been quite wet, quite slippery. But it doesn't look like this area has had too much rain over the last few days. It's obviously just missed the downpours. Last time I came through here we were slipping and sliding, so that's good news, because it is not fun to get stuck up and down in this area, and quite easily it is quite easy to get stuck up here. Craig and I have had a few scary moments, but we've managed to get through them. And then we're also in the area now where the big sausage tree pride of lions like to hang around, so I will keep my eyes open for them too. But again, now we're driving in serious grassy area, and you can just see here it's all grass, lots of trees though, so plenty spots for the lions or leopard to lay. Now, Scarlett, you're wondering if the heat is dry or if it's quite humid up here in the Mara. It depends. If we're going to get a big thunderstorm in the afternoon, it tends to get quite humid. Otherwise, it's a very dry heat. It's quite pleasant. It's a lot more pleasant than the Sabi sand, that's for sure. My goodness, when the temperatures, you know, are in excess of 36, 37 degrees Celsius, and then you've got the humidity to go with it, it's an absolute nightmare. It is so unpleasant. Tristan said to me it felt like his eyes were burning and about to pop out of his sockets. He was so hot and uncomfortable the one afternoon. It was about 2 afternoons ago. So it isn't nice. But yeah, it's not so bad. But you just get sunburned quite easily without even realizing how hot it actually is. Which reminds me, that's something I should probably do. I'm going to put it on right now, rather sooner than later, because I have fair skin and I'm going to get burned. Actually, I get most afternoons I come back a little bit on the burnt side. Don't tell my mom though, she'll be very upset with me. Now I hope I don't have any on my face. I hope it's all rubbed in. Otherwise you'll have a good laugh. Now, Megan, you're wondering what is the temperature? Hang on. Oh, missed it. Too slow. Okay, the temperature is about 26 degrees Celsius, so what, 78 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere around there. Sorry guys, I was going to try and catch you this grasshopper locust thingy. I don't know what it was, but remember how amazing between their legs. What? Sorry about that, gremlins everybody, but we're back. So what I was trying to catch was a grasshopper or a locust. I'm not sure what it actually was. It would have been nice to have had a closer look, because I've told you since I've been here, I've been wanting to catch one, because they've got the most amazing flash coloration, purples and blues and yellows and oranges, when they sort of open and jump and open up their wings. It's so spectacular, but it is quite difficult to see. But I think we could get lucky and have another one land up on the car as we're going through. We're disturbing them. Surprised we don't have the drongos and the cattle egrets and things running after us, catching all the insects that we're disturbing, because we're doing a great job at the moment as we go through this grassy track. Keep checking around here. See, now it's hard because I've got to look in the trees and try and look down on the ground. And unfortunately, I can't check every single one of them, which makes me sad, because the amount of animals that I've probably missed along the way would be a few. I'd love to know how many leopards I've driven past in the Mara. Now, Mrs. Zero, you've said that Christmas is coming up and you're wondering what is on Maurice's wish list. I don't know. Probably a girlfriend. I don't know. I think he gets lonely out here in the Mara. I don't know. I'll have to ask Maurice. I think saw him writing a letter to Santa, so I might take a sneak peek before I post it and see what he wants and see what we can do. Maybe he'll get a pair of sunglasses. Maurice, do you want a pair of sunglasses? You can have my old pair of sunglasses and I'll get the new pair. You can have a hand-me-down Christmas present. He doesn't deserve to have a new one. I don't think his attitude has been particularly good this year. You might get coal in your stocking, my friend. Well, you live over there. Or he might get a washing machine or something like that, because he's pretty dirty. I need to give him a clean. He's accumulated a lot of dust over the last few months and has yet to have his first shower, first mud bath. Maybe he'll have his first mud bath for Christmas. I don't think I'll be putting Maurice in the mud. He's one of those city elephants. He doesn't like to get his skin dirty. Anyways, sure. This road is just about completely grown over. I don't Maurice needs a hat, probably to protect him from the sun, especially if he goes to the beach again. You almost certainly need a sun hat, and I don't know where you'd find an elephant teddy sized hat. It might have to be a homemade one, so I'm not very arty. I'm sure someone in camp would be able to make a hat. Well, we'll see. Oh, Tristan's very good. He dressed up Poogie, so maybe we'll have to ask We'll have to ask Tristan to make Maurice a Christmas hat. You know what though? I have to big thank you to Faith, who's directing today, because she got us all Christmas hats. I was devastated. If I'd known that I was going to be here for longer than 3 months, I would have brought my favorite Christmas hat with me, which I've had since I was a kid, which I wore last year, and I've worn every other year that I've been a guide. And since I don't even know how old I was when I got that Christmas hat, but it's more than 10 years old. And I'm so sad, but at least Faith got us some. She pulled through, so that's quite exciting and something to look forward to. And I can't believe that Christmas is around the corner. I cannot believe how quickly this year has gone. It feels like just the other day we were having Christmas. Okay, right, come on lions and leopards and hyenas and cheetah, pop your heads up at the tall grass so we can see you. And okay, well, I suppose I actually have to focus now. It looks like my road is starting to disappear, so I'll send you back up to the north of where I am to Ralph and his lions.
Thanks, Taylor. So from a stuffed elephant to real elephants. Got a lovely herd moving through the grass plains here, and these are my favorite. The real ones, I mean, not the stuffed ones. I'm watching them grazing, quite peaceful in the afternoon. A lot of them flapping their ears, keeping them cool in the nice warm afternoon. Very tranquil though, and they've obviously got to keep feeding literally almost all day. And there's a little youngster as well. It's so nice to see these big herds of elephant, and they're very peaceful. And you can see there one of the ways of checking the age of a little youngster like that, when they are very young and within a year's old. Now he's just stepped into the shade, so it's not as easy to see, but you can see how the ears now don't touch at the top, the ear flaps I mean, and under a year they actually slide over each other on top of the head. So that's one of the ways of seeing how old they are. So this little youngster here, he's probably around a year or just over. To be best, you're saying, oh, little baby Ellie. Absolutely. They're very cutie, isn't he? But you can also see he's starting to get the use quite nicely of that trunk. Before a year of age, they still they're very much like a hose pipe that's gone out of control, and when they get to water they still don't know whether to blow or suck, and it can be quite funny to watch. But they're all part of this greater system, and everybody helps to look after them. Now Julie, you're wondering what age do the baby elephants get weaned? At about a year's old they do start to sort of feed a little bit on vegetation as well, as you can see this youngster now starting to do. But he can continue to breastfeed all the way up even 2 years and possibly more. So it is quite an extended period. It's normally between 2 and 3 years old that they start to get weaned. But it's a slow process because their stomach needs to move from just a liquid diet onto being able to digest and absorb some vegetable protein. Even as an adult, their digestive system is very poor, and that's why they need to almost constantly feed. But it does lean towards being a brilliant helper in the system, from breaking down vegetable matter and then putting it into a form that a lot of insects and animals can use. Now a lot of arthropods make their homes inside elephant dung, and the one that comes to mind always is the dung beetles, and you can have many different species of dung beetle all in one elephant dung site. Remember, elephants aren't territorial, so they won't go and defecate in the same place. So they feed, and it takes within about 24 hours for it to pass through their body. But so they're putting it in one end, and 24 hours later it's coming out the other end, almost just chewed and broken down a little bit, and then it's in a lovely form for all sorts of other little creatures. And for instance, the helmeted guinea fowl, they come past and break it open looking for those grubs and beetles and things inside it as well. So we've got a mini habitat that is created by the elephants from feeding to defecating, and they're constantly doing it. So that's one role that they play. Another one is to keep the bush thickets open, because there are some places that if it wasn't for elephants it can get so thick that none of the other animals can move through. So it's almost like the hippos do in the swamps of the Okavango Delta. They're keeping the channels open. So do the elephants in the thicket areas and in the brush. They keep the bush open enough for animals to pass through. So that's another very, very important role that elephants play within the ecosystem. Now, I think we're going to head towards those lions. Now, I've been saying that for quite a while, but we are just near to them. These elephants were just another distraction, but we're going to head to them shortly. Now, CNAC, you're wondering, and a very good question at that, can elephants be aged from their ears? Well, not in particular. What we will check with their ears is individual characteristics. So we actually use the ears if there's any little notches or cuts or fray marks. That is a very good indicator of a particular individual. So with the researchers, which I have been involved with many times as well, what you normally do is, now the technology has moved on, so what people do is take photos. But that one, for instance, you can see that notch. There's actually two notches that are out. One is a V and one is like a square. Now, I'm not sure if they've actually done that here, because some of the researchers or the management on reserves, they can actually dart animals and then put in these coded shapes in their ears, but that might just be a coincidence that it is a V and a square. But very often with rhino, especially now with the poaching that we're having, that they use those kind of shaped cuttings on the ears to identify specific individuals. But what we will do is we'll come up, and in the old times we used to draw the ear, so you would actually get to know it a little bit more intimately, because you'd have to sketch it out. But nowadays everybody is just quickly taking photos, which does make it a lot quicker, and you can reference it much easier, but it doesn't tend itself to you actually learning the individual and spending time with each and every one, because you would have to be able to draw the ear. But that is a very good way of identifying individuals, but not per se with the actual age. As I said before, when they're over each other like that on top of the head, it's normally under a year's old, and then as they start to slip down the side of the head, that's when they're over a year. So that's all I know in terms of aging of youngsters. But once they get older, it just, in terms of how tattered they are, tattered and torn, we can start to see different individuals. But it's like humans, I suppose. Once we get a little bit older, our ears can look a little bit more tired, and it depends on how many earrings you've worn, but it's not a perfect science to be able to age an animal. George, thanks for your question. You're wondering, how often do elephants seek water holes? Generally, elephants can drink 2 or 3 times a day, and they normally drink up to about 100 liters of water per day. And this is in general, because it's not a perfect science. Everybody's different, but that's in general, and in areas with elephants that are used to having readily available water. They can hold about 7 liters of water in their trunk when they are adults, and they can spray that obviously into the back of their mouth. Now, the desert elephants, however, are slightly different, and they are adapted to areas which are obviously with much less water. And what they do is they can go a few days without water, but then after that time they would have to replenish. And those elephants have also been known to put their trunk literally into their stomach, so down their throat, and suck some water out, and just a little bit of their reserves that they would be using over those couple of days, and they can spray it behind their ears or their ear flaps to assist in cooling the body down. So a little bit like us spraying water over our face, but a regurgitated water. Yes, so that is extreme survival strategies that elephants do have. Now, Sinak, you're wondering if elephants lose their hearing as they get older. I don't know it from a scientific or research perspective, but I'm pretty sure that they would start to lose their hearing slightly. If Archie can go in there on the ear flap itself, behind the eye, it's very similar to our ear. You can actually see the ear opening there a little bit up to that's it. There. It's in the shade there now, folks. So that is where the ear opening is, and that ear flap is literally all it is a flap. But I say that it is of vital importance. It obviously helps to funnel any noise towards that ear flap, the ear opening, as well as fulfilling a massive cooling function for elephants, because they wave that ear flaps backwards and forwards, and they have an extreme amount of blood which is passed through there, and it then goes immediately to the brain. So everything that is cooled down in those ear flaps is then cooling the brain as well. So a very intricate cooling system. It's like the radiator. Now take care, you're wondering, where does the sound of an elephant come from? Does it come from their throat or their trunk? Well, take care, they actually produce two different noises, which I believe they can produce from both. That trumpeting noise that they make, that I think has a lot to do with the trunk, as the name would suggest, but the low rumble, the which is their normal contact calling, that to me comes from the belly and from the throat. So that is then the difference. So I would say more the alarm sort of heightened state of stress would be that noise coming from the trunk, and then that normal communication coming from the belly and the throat. And they say that elephants can also, because of that subsonic sound that they use, most of which we cannot hear with the human ear because we don't hear frequencies that low. Most of it we don't hear, and a lot of it they can actually pick up with the soft tissue in their feet. And this has been exhibited quite nicely when there was some poaching up in the northern parts of Kruger. Not poaching, excuse me, they were doing culling. And sorry, I just stopped because we are hearing some of that rumbling that I was talking about. A very low pitch rumble, and there was a little bit from the animals on the left to the animals here on the right. They've stopped now, but there was an obvious communication between these two little groups. Now, what I was saying was that there was some culling with elephant groups up in the northern parts of the Kruger, and more than 350 kilometers to the south, there were elephant groupings exhibiting extreme amounts of stress for no apparent reason, but at the exact same time that those groups were being culled up in the north. And it is assumed that these animals can actually communicate over long distances through the vibration in the ground. And they think that those elephants in the south actually picked up the stress of those animals more than 300 kilometers to the north through the communication that they were sending, subsonic noises in the ground. And there's a lovely book that I've read that details the stories of the elephants in the Eastern Cape region of South Africa. And these elephants were hunted almost to extinction, and there was only one small group eventually left, and only one breeding bull. And this bull was very, very solitary, as bulls are, and there was one ranger assigned to this group of elephants, and he was assigned to go and look after this bull elephant and protect it with his life, which he did. But he documented and he wrote a story about this elephant that he regularly found at the ocean, looking out at the sea and off onto the horizon. And he watched this elephant for months, and he could not work out what this whole deal was about. Why was he going to the ocean and looking out over the sea? And one day when he came down and he watched this again, he actually noticed that there were whales out at sea, and they were obviously in some way communicating with this elephant. And it seems the ranger thinks that the elephant was actually eventually quite lonely, and there is quite a similar kind of communication system that whales have that possibly the elephant was tapping into and was in some way communicating with this whale. And with him being lonely, maybe it was his little place of solace and a little place that he could communicate with another large being out off into the ocean. So a very nice little story there. Anyway, from here we are going to literally try again and get a little bit closer to those lions, but it's been a lovely time sitting with these elephants. But let's send you over to Taylor, who I'm not quite sure what she's doing, but I'm sure it's something fun.
We've lost our road disappeared, and now I'm desperately trying to follow hippo pathways because the grass is so tall that I cannot see what I'm about to drive into. And there are so many rocks and termite mounds at the moment, I'm absolutely petrified I'm going to hit one of them. So I'm just going to focus on where I'm going. Also, the grass seeds are shooting up and into our eyes, which is not particularly pleasant, and insects flying towards us. So we're just trying to locate a road again at some point. We haven't had any luck with our leopard, obviously, just yet. But again, he could be anywhere. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to look at that camera and I'm going to go slam bang into a termite mound or a rock, which will not be funny. As hilarious as what it may seem, it's probably not going to be funny. Mary, you're wondering if you plant this grass at home. Sorry, I'm still concentrating. You're wondering, would it grow? Mary, it depends on where you live and the type of climate. A lot of these grasses are not used to things like frost, so if it's a very cold area, it probably won't grow. This area needs a fair amount of water as well. With the various species that are growing here, I actually just saw some turpentine grass, which I haven't seen. There's a little pocket of it. So yeah, you'll find grasses grow fairly quickly, surprisingly, and are quite easy to grow as well. The soil is so fertile out here though, so it doesn't take too much for it, and it's why it recovers so quickly once the wildebeest come through and completely graze it right down. So the grass definitely recovers a lot better here than it would in the Sabi sand, but I suppose that's also because of the amount of water and the amount of rainfall in comparison is much greater here. Right, we're going to head towards that big tree that you can see what's happening there. The topi police are all around. These are the first animals we've actually seen. Hi topi. I don't know where the road is. Oh my goodness, if we carry on any further, we're going to end up at the salt lick. Wait, what's under that tree? Nothing? I see something to the left of the tree. What's that? Can you see those things? Shall we go and investigate? Those look very lion-like to me. What do you think, Manu? Do you also think so? Could be lions, it could be rocks. Let's quickly have a look. And the grass is so short here. So you can actually see, this isn't quite recovered yet from the wildebeest. So this area was obviously heavily grazed in comparison to some of the areas that we've been driving through. Please be lions, please be lions. I'll be very happy if we found some cats. We've been driving for ages. Now, let's quickly look. I think it is Manu. Manu's going yup. I don't know what we've got though. One is definitely a lion. It has to be. Has to be a lion. No, I see paws. I see two lions. Woo! So excited. Chilling hard, hey? Manu says 2 young males. Manu, I think you're right. Do you think the Chelly boys? Manu thinks the Chelly boys. The Chelly boys. Let's see. Could quite easily be. Perfect tree. Just want to get us in a spot where we can see both of them. Okay, I'm almost ready to show you the lions. Almost. Ta-da! Sleeping lions. How exciting. Yes, so Manu, you are correct in saying that there are 2 young male lions. I thought we might find some cats laying under some of these bigger trees. I'm glad we lost the road and it sent us in this direction. Everything happens for a reason. I don't know who they are just yet. We'll have to wait and see till they put their heads up. But there is a possibility that it could be the Chelly boys. I haven't found out though, it hasn't been confirmed that the Chelly boys have had their collar taken off. Well, I haven't seen any posts. But remember, there was one male and he did have a collar on. And then we did start seeing a lion that looked like he'd had a collar removed quite recently. His mane was in interesting shape. But I'm not 100% certain. So there are so many young males around though. That it could be any of them. But for now, it just looks like they're fast asleep. I'm so sorry. I've got the most horrific allergies today from all the grass. So I'm going to try and see if I have an antihistamine of sorts to take. And while I self-medicate, off you go back across to the northeast with Ralph.
Oh, I wonder what Taylor's done to herself now. I'm sure I'll find out about it a bit later. But yes, we've come back to these lions, and it is still quite a far distance that we are now zooming in onto these youngsters. And off to the left of them, there seems to be the adults. There's a couple of lionesses there, and not sure that lioness in the middle. It looks like she's got her face right near to possibly, we think, the carcass. Now, the way she's panting as well does indicate that she maybe have fed. She is, however, lying in the sun. But just with those vultures having been around, it is very indicative of there being a carcass here somewhere. But we need to sit here and see the movements of these animals, see if one of them starts to go down and feed, if we get a little bit of crunching and biting on a carcass that is lying there. But well, at least we've been able to find them, and not quite sure which pride it is. Now, Deadhead Tom, you're wondering if I've ever had a guest throw something at lions to get them to move. Fortunately, throughout my guiding career, I've always briefed guests well enough on the sort of ins and outs of when we are in the vicinity of big animals and predators, and I've always laid out the rules quite clearly that any untoward behavior would result in me taking the whole group away from that situation, because we never want to change the habits of the animal or what they would be doing naturally. We want to observe, and that's it. So I would always mention that. But I would tell you that I have seen, and it's generally self-drive guests, when they are in a sighting and on their own, and it's normally when I've surprised them, come around the corner, and there's possibly one or two of them outside of the vehicle, and I have seen people throwing stones at lions to try and get them to move to get photos. But I've reported them, and I've probably made my name quite bad with lots of people, but I don't care. I am a stickler for the rules in game reserves, and I don't like when people sit with their doors open, when they climb on the roof of vehicles, etc., because the problem comes is that if somebody gets killed, what happens in the end is actually the lions will then, or whatever animal has injured or killed a person, that animal will also get exterminated. So that's the problem that I have. I'm not too bothered about the person getting injured or heaven forbid killed, but I'm worried that because of him or her and the stupidity, really, you've then got to put down an animal, and it happens quite regularly. So I'm not scared to tell people what I think of them when they start to break the rules in that, and I do explain why I'm so aggressive towards them sticking to the rules, and is what I've just explained to you. So yes, I think in that sense I am just trying to look out for the animals, but yeah, it depends on the day as to how nice I am to the person that I find outside the vehicle. Kaylin, you're asking the question and wondering, do you have a minimum age that you need to be before you can go and drive? Well, there isn't a minimum age. It's all down to the discretion of the guide. I don't suggest it is a great sort of environment for little toddlers and babies to be in on the back of a game viewer. For short periods it's not too bad, but I know from experience myself, my little boys, they don't really enjoy going on the vehicle. My 5-year-old now, he's started to really enjoy it, but the youngster of 3 years old, he doesn't enjoy it at all. You know, the first, maybe for half an hour, then it's fun, but so the minimum age, I would say, it depends on how long you can sit still for, and generally for me, the 5-6-year-olds, they can sit a little bit longer than a 3-year-old, and then once you hit about 10 years old, then you can maybe sit for 45 minutes to an hour to maybe an hour and a half. So yeah, there's no absolute minimum age. Anybody can go on a game drive. It's just how much you're going to enjoy it and how the guide is going to be able to put his knowledge across if you are enjoying it or not. So that's really how I look at it. We do, however, have a minimum age for bush walks, which is normally around 16 years old, but once again it's down to the guide and his discretion. You can have very mature 10-year-old kids that you would be able to take on a walk. It all depends. Would the kids be able to listen to the ranger in a dangerous situation, or mom and dad, if they came along, would they be able to control the kids? That needs to be judged by the guide, and normally he'll spend some time with the people before heading out on the bushwalk. I know I wouldn't go out on a bushwalk with a 10-year-old child without having spent a little bit of time with him or her, or the parents as well, and just to see if there is that element of control. Because once again, if there isn't any control out in the bush, I walk with a very high caliber rifle, and it is for our protection only. But if we're walking in the bush and we cause a scene and we get charged by an animal, I would have to defend ourselves, and if it was as a result of our negligence or stupidity, then that just wouldn't be right. So if we look over here, I don't know if Archie has seen, there is a little bit of movement of these lions, even though they are little specks off in the distance. We do have them moving around a little bit, which is not always the case with lions. So we might need to just look lively, Sergeant. We have moving lions. And there's the youngsters. I'm wondering if this is once again the marsh breakaway pride, because it looks like 3 or 4 of these juveniles, and then I wonder if those cubs are still stashed in the riverbed somewhere, and these adults have come out and made a kill. I'm still convinced that there is a kill because of those vultures. They don't generally just follow lions just for the sake of following lions. It's generally when there's a kill around. So there is, I'm sure, some meat in the area. Now, vultures have got a very particular way of spotting where lions have made a kill. It's normally to do with the blood that escapes the animal, or if there is any pieces of meat around, but generally that blood, because they can see in ultraviolet. So that green and red that would be released from the insides of the prey would literally glow for vultures. So very often, even though the lions, they drag the prey under a shade or under a tree where, you know, naturally you wouldn't be able to see them, see the prey and the lions, the vultures pick up that glowing redness of the blood. So we luckily have got these cats that are moving around a little bit. It is still part of the hotter part of the day, so we are going to sit and see if they get a little bit more active. But in the meantime, let's go over to Taylor, who I think has also found some cats for you.
And I think that they're just as flat as yours, I'm afraid. These boys are sitting out in the sun, though. One's got his head up. They're all, well, the lions are being watched. The lions are watching the topi. There are, let me count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, like about 20 topi surrounding these lions and just staring at them. So they're probably not going to go after the topi, I would imagine, because topi have got incredible eyesight and they're quite quick off the mark too. And I think they may be waiting for something else to come around. Maybe some warthogs, although I haven't really seen any other signs of life other than the topi that we've just seen and then these 2 male lions. So I think they're going to have to do a bit of moving around if they want to find some dinner tonight. But they're fast asleep. Well, one is fast asleep, and I think that the other boy will probably flop down at any minute too. I don't think he's quite ready to get up just yet. Hopefully I'm wrong. I'm always quite happy to be wrong when it comes to cats sort of being flat and then waking up. That's always a nice surprise. These are older boys. They look to be between 3 and 4 years old. And seemed like you were wondering exactly that. So yeah, I mean their manes are fairly well developed. I would say probably closer to about 3.5, 4 years old, somewhere around there. There's lots and lots of lions around that age roaming around. And remember, when you're this young, you aren't quite big and strong enough to have your own territory just yet. Even though there are 2 of them, there are bigger coalitions around, and they will get chased about a bit. So they could spend a few days here, and then if they bump into some territorial males, they might have to pick up the pace and move on out of here. Let me reposition quickly, man. Let's have a look at his face. Right. Oh my goodness, landmines in the form of rocks. Please don't bang underneath my... Wait. Sorry, Manu, we're going to have to just sit like this. There's too many rocks here this afternoon. We won't be able to stay here till after dark, though, unfortunately, because I'm going to end up breaking the car, which I don't want to do. Just looking at that boy on the right, though, he might be slightly older. He's got a very well-developed mane, but that also could just be genetics. He might just be slightly hairier than the other boy. They're lovely-looking lions. I still don't know if they're the Chelly boys or not. It's a bit hard to tell, obviously, without the collar. Put your head up, please. It was actually a nice treat to have that collar. And it just made it so easy in identifying them, because there aren't too many collared lions out here. Well, not that I've seen. I've only ever seen the one male that has a collar. I've seen more hyenas with collars out in the Masai Mara and the Mara Triangle too. Look at those topi down there. They've all bunched up together now. That big group. Oh, there we go. They were all, we sort of drove past them when we were coming through, and the little ones are all sitting in the grass, but they all seem to be waking up now and just staring around. Even the little ones are copying the adults and standing up on the termite mounds too to have a little look. They will struggle to see over the grass being so small, but you can see the nice color difference, and that is of course to help them camouflage, to help evade predation. And as they start to get older, they'll lose that very fluffy coat, which helps keep them warm too. And they'll get that slick, dark chocolate brown coat that the adults have. They remind me of goats, the topi. They're funny looking creatures. Even the hartebeest. Now, Ben, you're wondering what is the difference between a topi and a Coke's hartebeest? Well, color, firstly, the topi are obviously darker. I just described them being a little more of a chocolate brown color, whereas the hartebeest are the color of those youngsters, even as adults. And they're similar, I suppose, but not exactly the same. The Sabi and the Topi are subspecies of one another, and the hartebeest, I'm sure, are fairly closely related. They all resemble the same, and they're all fairly quick. And the red hartebeest is the second fastest antelope to after the Sabi being the quickest one. And we get a lot of red hartebeest in South Africa. In fact, I haven't seen them for a while though. There we go. Standing nicely together. I think they all know the lions are here. The one at the back, just displaying a little bit. Where are you off to? On an afternoon canter, by the looks of it, or regrouping. Perhaps it's a male getting a bit frisky and chasing the lot around. That seems to happen a lot out here. Okay, well, we'll sit with our sleeping lions for a little bit longer, and we're going to send you back to Ralph, who's also got the sleepy cats, and hopefully his start yawning before mine.
Yeah, so our cats aren't that sleepy, Taylor. They're I think they might just be a little bit lethargic because they've got full bellies. But we've still got these youngsters moving around a little bit. They get up, they walk around, they fall flat again, they roll over. And sorry for any of the bumps and things there, because Archie's right on the end of his zoom. So any movement in the car and we're on a little bit of a wobble. But at least we can see them reasonably clearly there. A very good quality, these lenses. But it's just an understanding that once you're on a very far zoom, any little bumps you can see. So that's not me shaking, that's Archie on the end of his zoom. And we were wondering now, when you folks were with Taylor, that we think this might be the Angama pride, because there are a number of lions here, and we just haven't been able to count just how many there are. Now, while we're looking at these lions, there was a question earlier this morning from Philip. Now, I don't know if Philip is watching, but I did do a little bit of homework, and the question was, do waterbuck allo suckle? Now, for those of you that don't know, allo suckling would mean, like allo grooming, do animals share in the same family or in a group of them? Would they, the different female who hasn't mothered a young, would she suckle that young, because they do leave their young in nursery type little situations? And the reading that I've done is no, they wouldn't allo suckle, but they would look after other females' youngsters. So they would obviously have a good feed off the mother. The mother would go off and forage and graze, and then come back and suckle her own young. So it's more the younger females that actually land up being the nannies in those groups. So it's quite interesting. As we see here, I'm sure Archie can just show you this little vehicle that's coming towards us. This is one of the Askari security vehicles, and they actually look after the rhino. There you can see on the side of the vehicle, it says Rhino Angama, and they are anti-poaching vehicles that literally go around looking for the rhino and making sure that they're alright. Now, I know that they're in this area because we're in the same area that Taylor found those black rhino this morning, and I'm pretty sure that that's why that rhino vehicle has just gone past. Archie, have they moved? Now, Sherry from Rhode Island, you're wondering how long these lions can go between feeds. It depends on what they fed on. And normally, if for instance they eat just a little warthog and they all have a mouthful or so, they would have to kill every day. But if they got something bigger, like a zebra, they could possibly go for 2 or 3 days. If they got something even bigger than that, like a buffalo or a giraffe, then they could go for up to a week. So that's what it all depends on, what kind of energy expenditure they're willing to put out, and risk versus the energy gain that they're going to get out, also from the risk aversion. So it's for me, it's actually worth the risk when lions go for giraffe or buffalo, because they've only got one risk to take, and then they can actually survive for quite a length of time on the protein gained from that risky business. Whereas if they take on warthog, they're almost just living from hand to mouth. They need to continuously then make kills. So for me it makes sense, especially once you get a pride of many numbers, like this seemingly Angama pride. It seems like there's about 12 or 13 cubs in this group, so it's going to be quite interesting to see once these cubs start heading towards adulthood how or what this group is actually going to start feeding on. It's like in the Djuma, those lions, the sticks, they like going for buffalo. And so those lions, they then specialize in going for buffalo, and that for me is the ultimate. Lions, once they get into bigger groups and once they are adept at hunting buffalo, the risk is well outweighed by the gain. So, and once they start getting good at it, it definitely makes sense. There are those, as I've said, in Botswana that start on with elephants and hippos, and it's almost what is more readily available. And in those areas specifically, there are so many elephants. There's one getting up, Archie, and it looks like she might be looking out. I wonder if she spotted a warthog or something coming towards her. And once the lions are in an area, it all depends on what is readily available. And in Botswana, there's almost there is an overpopulation of elephants, and that's why I'm sure the super prides have started specializing in hunting elephants. Obviously, once they can eat the meat, there's a lot of it available, but that is a very risky business. I'm sure there will be lots of mortality from the lion side as well, and it also does take them a lot longer to bring the actual animal down. It's actually the animal lying down from a result of stress and exposure and shock. They don't actually get brought down by the lions. They almost eat them alive. So it's not a very nice picture to watch. Now, Chandler, you're wondering, warthog have oily flesh, so would that make them distasteful to lions? They don't have a particularly tongue twister. They don't have a particularly oily flesh. Oh, okay, sorry. FC has just clarified for me, waterbuck, not warthog. Sorry about that. Waterbuck, their skin is not actually that oily. It's the glands that they have within the flesh that helps to spread a bit of an oil on the flesh. Now, I mean, even when hunters kill waterbuck, when they are skinning them, the important thing is just to make sure that they don't burst those glands, because if that oil then taints the meat, then it can be distasteful. When lions eat them, however, I haven't sat and watched whether they actually discard that gland or not, but it doesn't seem to me that it makes any difference in terms of how they feed on the animal at all, because they eat waterbuck like they eat impala, like they eat warthog. So for me it doesn't make a difference in terms of the lions and whether they eat them or not, because they eat them all the same. But I'm sure if they did bite into that gland, I'm sure it would be a little bit distasteful, and maybe that they would discard. But the rest of the animal they eat regardless. So it's all down to that little gland, is the real answer I'm trying to say there. And these lions are getting a little bit active. I'm still wondering if they've spotted something, and they would maybe have killed something small. We still haven't seen the carcass per se. I'm wondering if it is something very small, because those vultures didn't show too much interest and there were only 3 of them. So maybe they did see a little bit of blood, maybe they came down and had a look. These lions have possibly already flattened it, as they would if it was a little warthog and so many mouths to feed. That would literally be half a little hors d'oeuvre and not even a little snack. Maybe not even all of them had some. That can quite often happen when lions hunt warthogs. John Gift, you're wondering if lions will ever hunt crocs? Yes, they will. I've seen a couple of lions hunting crocs in the Kruger National Park, and sometimes it's even when a crocodile is busy grabbing another animal, and then you get this lion coming in, one grabbing the animal that the crocodile was grabbing and another animal grabbing the crocodile, and so it can be a really amazing tussle. Another animal that also in the reptile world that does get quite heavily predated on by lions is that of the African rock python, because when they eat their prey, they are very vulnerable, and they can eat up till adult impala, the bigger African rock python. But the trouble is, they obviously unhinge their jaw, they swallow this whole animal down, but then they need to go and be immobile under a tree or in a secluded area. And in that time, it can take them up to a month or so to actually fully digest everything that they've swallowed. And in that time, they are very heavy, they're very lethargic, and they're very vulnerable to attack by lions. So I've seen lions attacking rock pythons quite heavily, and there's lots of meat in them as well. And obviously, if you get a rock python that's just killed an impala, you get a double meal. You get your starter, your entree, and your dessert all in one. So very nice little meal that for a lion. So these lions are up and down, not too sure if we should hang around to see if they do anything exciting. Now, Sinak, you're wondering if the anti-poaching vehicles, the one that just passed us, if they will protect the big cats as well. Sinak, they will protect all the animals. They're obviously very concentrated on the rhino at present because there is a big problem around that. I think the price might have just recently risen as well, because there's been a little bit of a slow in the supply, and it was at around 66,000, but now I believe it's moved over to around 70,000 US dollars per kilogram of rhino horn. So that is the end price on the market, and it's used for an array of different things, one of them being aphrodisiacs, but there's been a large influx of different uses, mostly in the Middle East, but it's been used in other areas as well, and it's mostly down to fallacies. I mean, because it is all literally just the same as our fingernails, as our hair, so keratin, and it is exactly the same. So the people that are using the end product of this might as well just be eating their nails, and why don't we even say their big toenail at that. But you know, we say that's people in the Middle East, but closer to home in Africa, we have people that you know, for instance, the sangomas, or the witch doctors, some of them use the claws and teeth of lions for prowess, you know, to hand over to people, and so there's, you know, we can't just isolate the Middle Eastern people. In every culture we've got strange beliefs, and there are some really strange beliefs around wild animals, and some of them are really just silly. But to change cultures, to change traditions, it's not as easy as it seems. So we need to just continue to try and protect these animals, and I think education, both for kids and for adults, is of paramount and key to the success of saving these animals. The more we make it known, the less it's going to be a big problem. So, we're going to see if these lions are going to do anything else, and maybe we can spot the kill at some stage, and hopefully something else exciting happens. But in the meantime, let's go over to Taylor, who has got those trunked big guys.
It's just trunks and ears at the moment as this herd of elephants all huddled up. I think they were two different groups, or maybe the same family, and they were separated because half of the group came charging over the hill down towards the rest, and everyone was very excited to see one another. And there's an entire greeting process that's been going on now for the last few minutes. Now, we're very lucky that we're actually sitting here with this particular herd of elephants, because normally we wouldn't have any signal here. So our new repeater that we've put up is definitely helping. So we're going to be doing a couple of tests too, and just checking around here. So we're not too far away from the Salt Lick. Salt Lick's just a bit further west from us. But it was quite interesting to see. All the little elephants came around. Each elephant cow went about and almost greeted every individual. It was quite fascinating to watch, which was really nice. And now they're all huddled up together too, and they're on the move. We did move away from our lions, and that's because I got savaged by flies. It was really terrible. They bit me 4 times, and then I just couldn't handle it anymore, so I had to abandon ship, unfortunately. But that's okay. And at least we've got this nice herd of elephants, and some of them are now going down to have a wallow. Do you want to go a bit closer, Manu? Do you want me to get on the other side? We'll do that quickly. We'll just go around here. We'll get a bit closer to that wallow. They react to us. They haven't reacted with us though. She was splash about. Watching.
Yes, everybody, so we're still sitting here. Sorry about that. I think there are some gremlins on Taylor's side, but we're still sitting here with these lions off in the distance, still hoping that they're going to get up and have a chase on a waterbuck or something in the area. So we're ever hopeful. We did spend the whole day looking for them, so we're hoping that they'll oblige and do something nice for us. But if they don't, well, we'll sit here a little bit longer and then maybe move along and try and find something else, and then maybe come back to them a little bit later. But it seems like it is an extended group of lions. There are some sub-adults, juveniles, and some of them have moved off into the thicket, but it seems like quite a number of lions here altogether. That lovely dead tree in the middle, making a lovely setting for the vultures, which is what we spotted when we first got here. But I'm thinking that we need to get up and start moving a little bit, just to get out and see something else. We'll always come back here. They're not going to go far, I'm pretty sure of that. Okay, so let's go see what else we can find. Maybe I can spot these black rhino. They were grazing along, but they were very far as well, similar to what these lions are, so we sort of left them alone. But I'm going to move now into an area that they were moving towards, so maybe we'll get lucky. Please, once again, don't be shy. Throw us your questions and your comments on Twitter and on the YouTube live chat. Remember, hashtag Safari Live. We'll keep it as live as possible, as interactive as possible, and as exciting as possible. Let's try and find something that's going on around the next corner here. You never know with wildlife. Always springs on you when you least expect it. That's why you should always expect it. Go through these little thickets here, and Archie tells me that this is the area that the black rhino like to hide. You know, they are a thicket species and a little bit nocturnal, quite different from the white rhino. That is more like the buffalo, which like to spread out on the open plain, and they graze the grass. Black rhino, they've got more of a prehensile lip, and they like to feed on little branches and leaves that you would find in the thickets. Having said that though, once again, they always go against the grain, and they are out at the moment, out in the plains grazing, which is not always what you see with black rhino. So it's quite unusual to see that, but it just goes to show the richness of the plains at the moment, and this red oat grass that is coming through. It's very nutritious, and that's obviously what's pulling all these animals into the plains, elephants included. If the grass is not of a good value nutrition wise, you won't find elephants grazing, but here in the Mara I see them grazing more than anything else, which is quite unusual for me to see that. You see them often take the odd bit of grass, but here I've seen them grazing almost predominantly. And normally they're pushing trees down and going for the leaves and little flowers on top of the knob thorns, and looking for those mistletoe and all sorts of things like that. But here it seems like they're quite content, not contempt, with grass. It must be the richness of it. But it is very well known that the red grass, or Temida triandra, which is dominating these plains, is one of the best, if not the best, in terms of grass nutrition. Now I actually want to just stop and grab one that I can show you, because they've got a lovely red color on them, and if Archie can just show in there, they do glisten in the sun. Obviously this isn't the highly prized portion of the grass that the animals are going for. This is the inflorescence that we are looking at, or the flowering part, or the reproductive part of the plant. The vegetative part of the plant, more down at the bottom, is the really nutritional part. So that's actually what all these animals are after, and that is lovely red oat grass. That's what they call it here in South Africa, just red grass, Temida triandra. Right, let's go over to Scott, all the way in South Africa, 1,600 miles to the south, and let's see what he's getting up to.
Hello everyone, we've got a very, very exciting situation here. We are at a leopard's den site, and if any of you are joining for the first time, we've been spending a lot of time here, but we haven't had any luck in seeing the mother around. But just before you joined us, we could see her head, so she is here, and hopefully if she moves a little bit out into the open, we'll be able to see her and her tiny little cub, which is only about 6 weeks old. Now, what we've learnt is that there's a very deep cave in and underneath all this undergrowth, and there's a kind of a fallen down tree, and basically she can completely disappear. So I think when we have been coming here in the past, we've just been assuming that mom is not here, but she could well be. It's actually just impossible to know. And as Senzo, who I'm teamed up with on camera this afternoon, zooms out, you can see that she's chosen a very well hidden and secluded spot. My name is Scott, and it's great to have you on safari with us down in South Africa. It's a cloudy day here, and it's nice and cool. We've been loving the cool weather, and it's not just myself. Our Tristan is also out this afternoon, and his plans also involve looking for a leopard. Oh, there we go. There's a bit of movement. Who's that now? That's Mom's head. There we go. Now you can see her. And that's really interesting stuff. So, very, very well camouflaged and hidden in here. Now this cub is absolutely tiny, so we don't want to try and get any closer to this den site. This mom can be quite protective, and therefore will not really tolerate us getting any closer to the den, so it'll be far better off for us to stay put where we are and slowly just get this cub used to us as vehicles, as humans, and our voices, so that way when it grows up it will be relaxed with our presence. Ordinarily leopards will be very, very shy and secretive, so we are very fortunate here in the Sabi Sands where we've definitely got some of the... Oh, let's have a look. She's moving again now. She's just moved into another spot, and I think she's actually going to be heading out for her hunting this evening because she's probably been here all day, and who knows, maybe she'll take us back to a kill, or maybe she will take us hunting. We're not certain if she does have some food at the moment. Look very closely though, because we could see this tiny cub moving at any moment. Attacks, I can just see Thandi, no visual of the Bantuan, and it looks like she might be possibly getting mobile and heading out. Sorry guys, I was just updating Taxon, one of the guides, on what was going on with the sighting. It's a very, very tricky sighting. Obviously, a lot of people will want to try and spend time here in the hope that they will see this tiny cub, but we're in a very well suited kind of situation to spend time in a given area hoping to see a cub, as opposed to the guides with their guests who are spending a very short time here and therefore will probably want to go off in search of more guaranteed sightings. So it looks like Mom's just repositioned and laid down, so she's not ready to go hunting just yet, but I'm glad we got to at least see a few glimpses of her. Hello Neka, you would like to know what kind of prey will leopard eat? Well, they're extremely versatile with what they are happy to feed on. They're certainly not fussy, and their ideal prey is kind of small to medium-sized antelope. So small antelope in this area will comprise of duiker, steenbok, impala, and babies of inyala, kudu. Most of the small herbivores can be fed on by leopard, but they have also been known to feed on fish, on birds, on snakes, on just about anything they can overpower. Tortoises. So a strong female leopard like this will be able to be a little bit more fussy, and she's got hunting prowess and skill now, so she will mainly feed on antelope, maybe the odd hare, but young leopards will certainly be a lot less skilled and therefore have to take whatever they can get, which can make for some interesting scenes. Very good. Now we're going to stay here, we're going to stay put in the hope that we either get a visual of the cub, if not we get to at least follow this mother as she goes out hunting. You guys are going to be heading off to jump on board with Tristan, who's the other vehicle traveling around the Sabi Sands with me, and he has also got a surprise for you.
And good afternoon, and yes we do, Scott. We have a very, very special surprise. We have two big male lions that are having a really serious nap. Now, it is a very warm welcome to the school that has joined us this afternoon, so Diamond Springs Elementary. It's wonderful to have you all with us, and I hope that you will love every minute of being out here, and you're already being spoilt with the shy, elusive leopard and the power of the two big male lions. So remember, you can ask lots of questions through your teacher, and you'll be able to then send them through, and we'll try and answer as many as possible. My name is Tristan, and on camera today I have got Fergus. There's Fergus's thumb. And so we are busy watching these two male lions. They've been here for most of the morning. They haven't really done too much today. It's a nice cloudy, overcast day, which means that they can sit under the cover of the clouds and don't have our biggest carnivore to our smallest carnivore. There's a little dwarf mongoose. So those are also meat eaters, much like the lions, except they are our absolute smallest of the whole entire area, and so those are very little compared to the lions. But they'll have to be careful of lions because lions ultimately can eat them, so they'll have to stay away. Although these two males, I think, are still very sleepy. They've got a situation where Yesterday they were very busy. They killed a buffalo yesterday, and then they started to eat an impala that they stole from a leopard, and so they've got round bellies and they are tired because of that. Now the one closest to us, he's a very good looking male. He's about 7 years old, so he's slightly older than the one at the back. The one at the back is about 6 years, and it's not just the two of them. There should be 4 of them in total, but what happens is, because they're dominant males and they move around quite a lot, you find that the other 2 might be somewhere else with another pride of lions, or they're checking the boundaries, trying to mark that so that other males don't come here and take their females and don't take all of the area that is theirs. So they're trying to protect it as much as possible, and that's why they spread. But look at how fluffy his mane is. Doesn't he have a beautiful mane? You can see it's quite dark on the chest and then lighter around the head. And look at those eyes. You see those eyes? He's just looking at us, so he's checking just to see what's going on. And the reason why he opened his eyes initially is not only because I'm talking, but there's some birds that are flying around here called swallows. Now, swallows are very fast birds and they fly very quickly, and one just now actually flew into the male at the back and hit him in the head and woke him up, which was very, very funny. So he got a big fright when the bird hit him, and so every now and then they come flying past and they then get a little fright as they hear these wings going over their head. And so if you watch carefully, every now and then maybe a bird will come over there. They travel all the way from Europe to here in South Africa for the summer because they're looking for insects. So where the summer is and the rain falls, then there's lots of insects, and in Europe it's too cold now, so they've got to come all the way down to South Africa, which is a 10-hour flight by plane. But for these swallows, you can imagine it takes much longer than that. Now, what the very interesting thing about the swallows, which hopefully, like I say, we'll see at some point, is that the swallow doesn't need to sleep when it flies all the way. So you can imagine it's now flying from, let's say, Spain all the way to South Africa, and the whole way it stays flying. It doesn't land or even try and find a place to rest. It will just continue to fly, and it will even sleep while flying. Isn't that amazing? I think it's absolutely fantastic. And there you can see our male lion is showing off his big teeth. So this particular male, his name is called Tinyo, and Tinyo is actually means a tooth in the local language. So it's a perfect name for him as he shows his big canines. If you can repeat it for me, please. That's very funny. I wonder why he's lying like that. I think it's because he's a bit hot with all of that mane, so he just opens his belly out so that he can get a little bit of cool breeze over it. Doesn't look as though it's very comfortable, does it? Although I think it seems to work for male lions. They seem to like doing it. So, Lance, you're asking, how do male lions sleep during the day? Well, basically what happens with a male lion, or any lions really, is that normally here in Africa it's very hot. And so and it's difficult for them to be able to move around. They're going to use lots of energy to try and stay cool because they'll have to pant, and that means they open their mouth and they breathe very fast. And so lions, instead of using all that energy, would rather go underneath a bush, and that's why they sleep during the day. So they try and find a bush somewhere where it's got lots of shade, and then they'll just fall asleep there, and they can sleep for as much as 20 hours in a 24-hour period, which is a long time. And the reason why, like I say, is because of the amount of energy that they use when they're hunting. So when they chase other animals, it means that they use a lot of energy and it makes them very tired. And so then during the day they sleep, and then at night when it's cooler and it's darker and it's easier for them to hunt, then they wake up and start moving. So I'm sure these two are going to be very, very sleepy for now, and then you'll find when it starts to get around sunset, that's when they're going to start waking up and their heads will be up, and they might even start to roar at that stage to try and tell everybody that they are here. So for now it's going to be a little bit of lazy lions, unfortunately, but you never know with them. Maybe something walks past. You could have something like a zebra or a buffalo that comes past, and that will definitely wake them up. Genesis, you're wondering why lions' eyes are different than people's eyes. Well, the reason is because our eyes are not designed very well to see at night. So we are able to see amazing colors because we like to see all the colors, and we're active during the day. We're not animals that are active at night, whereas lions, they don't see very many colors. They don't see all the greens and blues and yellows and reds like we do. They see very, very muted colors. So what muted means is that there's very little color in what they're actually seeing, and so their eyes are designed to see much better at night. And so in their eyes, you've got two types of cells. You've got rods and cones. So cones are for color. Remember, C for cones, C for color. That's the kind of cell that picks up color. And rods are light cells, so they pick up the amount of light. So lions have way more light cells, rod cells, than what our eyes do, so that they can see at night like we see during the day. Oh, whoopsie boy, did you just fall over? And so that's why their eyes are a little bit different. What is the same as us is you see that their eyes are on the front of their head next to each other. So we also have eyes like that, not like the antelope that have eyes on the side of their head. And the reason why their eyes are in the front is because they've got what's called binocular vision. Now, binocular vision means that they are able to judge distance. So they can work out how far a zebra or a buffalo is away from them, so that they can accurately determine or work out how to get to that animal without spooking it and being able to then hunt it. So they need their eyes on the front. Antelope, because they don't need to judge distance, they just need to spot if they see a predator. Their eyes are on the side of their head, so they can see all the way around them and pick up any predators if they're around. So that's why they have a different type of eye to the antelope, but their eyes in terms of how they see and how they kind of are able to see is very similar to us, because they are in the front of the head with both of those eyes facing forward. Right, now while I sit with our male lions and see, maybe they might wake up, maybe they won't, but it's either way, it's really nice to see them and spend time with the king of the predators. Let's go back across to Scott, who is, I think, still with the leopard, and hopefully that little cub is coming out.
Well, that is exciting prospects with Tristan and some big male lions. Now, we've repositioned the vehicle ever so slightly, and it appears like there's a very, very strange situation unfolding here. She appears to be eating something. Now, I don't know what... There you can see she was chewing there. Now, I don't know what on earth has got into her mind, but it makes absolutely zero sense to be eating anything at a den site, because of course the scent given off from the blood and the kill, whatever it may be, is of course going to possibly attract other predators and threats to a tiny little cub. Now, my only possible explanation for what is happening here is if maybe something like a snake, or maybe a silly francolin just like kind of walked too close to them, and then she instinctively pounced on it, but we just can't tell what it is she's feeding on. But there's no two ways about it. She is eating something. Now, the only other possible scenario is that maybe this is not Thandi and it's another leopard that's eating her cub. But I hope that is not the case. I can literally hear bones crunching now. What have you found? Well, threat that was getting close to her cub. Now, I did mention that maybe, just maybe, it's a leopardess or a male leopard that's coming here and killed her cub while she is away. But I think that's highly, highly unlikely, because I was here about half an hour before you guys joined us, before the drive started, and we definitely did get a visual of the little cub and Thandi. So unless she left and another leopard arrived within a little half an hour gap, which is highly unlikely, that would be the only way that it would be another leopard. So fear not, I doubt that's the case, but we do need to exhaust all possible avenues of what could be going on here. Who knows, maybe the cub's down there also having a good old snack. And maybe leopards will bring young cubs a tiny bit of food from time to time, but it's certainly not something that I've ever read about or heard about. fascinating. Senzo initially said to me he thinks that the leopard's eating something, and I told him he must be mad, because surely that's not even an option. And lo and behold, once we repositioned, I too quickly realized that she was eating. So well done, Senzo. Now, like I said a bit earlier, it is quite a tricky sighting in terms of not the best visuals, but we're going to be extra sensitive, because like any mother with a newborn child, she's going to be naturally very protective over it. So we don't want to give her the wrong idea. You can see she's completely relaxed with our presence where we are, and we would like to keep it that way. So not the best views, but if we're patient, who knows, maybe we will get lucky and see this tiny little cub. Now, I think it was Sam, you were asking, would she actually eat her own cub? And I have seen a leopard eating her own cub before, but it had been killed by a male leopard. So it was already dead when she decided to feed on it. It was a very tricky scene to watch. And even though the cub was dead, it was just bizarre that the mother was eating it, I thought. But they will, and I guess it's a bit of closure, a bit of extra nutrition. But I did see the cub running around here half an hour ago, so she would never kill her own cub. But yes, possibly feed on it if it was killed by another animal. I think on a few occasions leopards have also stumbled upon pythons that have recently caught and killed their cubs, and whilst attacking the python eventually. Now, when we initially saw her head moving like this, we kind of assumed that she was actually licking the cub and moving the cub around. But that wasn't the case, but she will be doing a lot of cleaning of that cub. So that is also something to look forward to. Hello Genesis, you would like to know why do leopards have spots? And it's to help them blend in. If they were just one color, it would be easy to see her in this thick bush, but because she's got lots of little spots, it makes her that way she'll be able to creep up and catch her meals. It's very difficult for leopards, as fast as they are, to catch their prey, so they need all the help they can get, and camouflage definitely helps get them close to their prey before they launch their attack. And to give you an idea, Genesis, they need to be very, very close to their prey, as close as about 5 meters. So if you take 5 big steps, as long as you can stretch your legs, that's how close a leopard needs to be before it pounces. As Senzo zooms out, you get a good idea of how well she disappears in there, and what a great spot she's chosen to tuck her tiny little cub away. Wonderful stuff. Now I think we're just going to have to be quite patient here, and I'm just wishing we knew we could work out what she was feeding on in there, because it's still baffling me that she's actually eating something with her cub right there. Hi Necker, you would like to know, how do they make their claws come out? Well, it's a good question. It kind of happens automatically, you could say, as soon as they extend and pull certain muscles, like when they're climbing up a tree or latching onto their prey, those claws will come out of their sheath. So there's certain specific little muscles that they obviously can pull on, and then that pushes their sharp claws out of their protective sheath, just like a domestic cat. So even a domestic cat, when it stretches out and yawns in the morning, it often puts its claws out like that. So it's a combination of the muscles pulling on those nails and then pushing them out of their sheaths. And What's also interesting, Nick, is it's just the lion and leopard out of the African big cats that have their claws in a sheath. The cheetah is different to them. Their claws stick out permanently like a dog, and the reason being is cheetahs are a little bit different to lion and leopard. They don't really need to latch onto their prey as much as lion and leopard do. They're better at tripping up their prey, and they run very, very quickly, so they need those toenails to help with grip as they sprint across the plains. What's going on down there, Thandi? It looks like she's still nibbling on something. Now, the only reason I'm 100% sure she's feeding, because now it looks like she could actually be licking something, like the cub, while she cleans it. But I did hear a crunching of bones a little bit earlier, so she's definitely having a snack of sorts. Okay, very good. Well, while we wait patiently here for this leopard to hopefully come out and reveal her and her tiny little cub, we're going to send you back to Tristan, who's still with the lions.
I am indeed, and as you can see, very little has changed. It's still sleepy time for our male lions, and they are still very much taking it easy. The good thing is, though, it seems as though there's a little break in the clouds every now and then that might just get a bit warm, and hopefully that might mean one of them stands up and decides to move. You can see there, those little white flaring patches. Those are the areas where the cloud is breaking a little bit, and so maybe a little sunshine on them might invigorate them and make them decide to stand up a little bit and hopefully move around. That would be nice, because for now it's all very much about sleeping, which is typical for lions, because at the end of the day they are busy animals at night. And these two males walked quite a long way last night. They ended up going into a neighboring area, and then they came all the way southwards, and so they must have moved, I would say, probably close to maybe 6 miles last night. So it's a long time, a long way for lions to walk, particularly lions that have big full bellies, and so I suppose they've earned their rest this morning. Now, you may notice on this lion that he's got a very black tummy, so his tummy looks as though it's got no fur on it. Now, that's because he's got something called mange. So mange is a type of insect that lives on the lions, and it eats at their hair follicles, and that's why it causes them to itch, and they then scratch too much and they take their fur off. So it's a little bit of mange that he's got in his tummy, but it's much better than it used to be. But you'll find every now and then he'll use that big paw just to scratch there, or he'll use his back legs a little bit to scratch as well, just to try and ease the kind of itch of that area, because the mites really make them very itchy. It's like, imagine having a flea on you or something that's crawling on you. You're going to scratch at it to try and get rid of it. But look at that face. He's very funny, that lion. See, he's kind of lifting his head now. Maybe the little bit of warmth that's come out might mean that he decides just to get up and move into some shade. Hopefully that will be the case, because he's very sleepy now, and I want him to move around so you can see just how big they are compared to those leopards that Scott has on his side. Of course, also Scott has a female leopard, so the male leopards are bigger. Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll find a male leopard at some point this afternoon, because they also are around, and so you never know. Maybe we'll see one of them, and you can see then the size difference between all three of them. It's definitely getting much warmer now that sun is starting to kind of poke its head out. And right, now, while I'm sitting here, and maybe I think I might move on a little bit and see what else I can find while these two are sleepy and still resting like this, let's go back across to Ralph in the Masai Mara, who I think has got the largest land animal out of any of them here in Africa.
Yes, and the largest mammal on land we have indeed. This is the African elephant. And there's no other animal that is bigger on land than an elephant. And look how big those tusks are. Welcome to the school once more. Kiddies, please don't forget to ask us all your questions. What would you like to know about the biggest land mammal, the elephant? My name is Ralph Kirsten, and I'd love to answer all your little questions, so please send them through your teacher, and let's get them going as quickly as possible while we watch these elephants moving along in front of us. They all eating a little bit of grass, and generally elephants like to eat grass. They also eat leaves and branches and all sorts, so they're not very fussy, are they? You see those very big tusks they have? And those are like teeth. They are the same as your teeth. So if you take your finger and tap against your teeth, that's the same as those tusks. Exactly the same. They're just very big teeth, aren't they? But they're not made for eating anything. They're just made to defend themselves. Very nice green color, hey? As the elephants walk through, these animals are all wild. They don't listen to anybody. They do whatever they want to, whenever they want to. Isn't that a nice thing to think about, hey kids? If you could do anything you want, whenever you want, what would that be? I'm sure some of you are going to say, I'd like to be an elephant. Well, I would like to be one too. Especially a nice big boy elephant like that one, because he's got such big tusks, and I think everybody would be scared of him. He'd be a very strong elephant. With such big tusks like that, everybody else would be scared to double cross him. But it looks like he's got a bunch of friends that are moving with him, so I'm sure he's a nice elephant as well. And all the boys going up on the hill, eating grass as they go. Nice forest there in the background, with the mountain at the back. Oh, you can hear some zebra calling as well. Now, Justin, that's a nice question. How long are the tusks? Well, that big elephant over there, his tusks, they're probably around 2 yards, 2.5 yards, 2 to 2.5 yards, I would say, each. So they're quite big. And that you can see they get quite heavy as well. Sometimes they nearly hang on the ground, and his head gets very tired, so sometimes he might rest it on a termite mound or anything, maybe even a log. He just rests his head a little bit, because it's heavy work carrying those tusks around all day. Sometimes it's better to have smaller tusks like that one over there. He's not as big as the other one, and his tusks are a bit smaller, but that means that it's not as tiring for him to walk around all day carrying smaller tusks, which makes it a little bit easier for him. But he won't be big and strong like the other one, because he's got smaller tusks to carry around. Now, Matt, you're wondering, why does the elephant keep flapping his ears like that? Well, Matt, he flaps his ears like that because he's trying to keep cool. So he flaps his ears, and because he's got lots of blood in his ears, it helps him to keep cool. It's like when it's a very hot day and you spray water over your head. Well, the elephant is keeping himself cool by flapping the wind over his ears. You know, sometimes when mommy takes the fan and she whips it out her handbag and she starts waving it to get some air over her face if she's feeling a little bit hot, and she might do that to you too if you're sweating a little bit. Well, that's exactly what the elephant's doing. He's just fanning himself, keeping himself cool, because it's very hot out here in Africa, and I'm sure in some places where you are around the world it can get very hot as well. But elephants don't have things like the fan that you have in your room, so they use their ears. And that's what they do to keep themselves cool. Now, Anthony, you asked the question, what do they use their tusks for? Well, Anthony, they use it to defend themselves against any nasty, pesky lions if they want to try and attack them, or if there's some naughty other elephants, they use it to defend themselves against other elephants. They can also use it to get food, because sometimes they like to eat the bark of a tree, so they'll use that to get inside the tree and break the bark off, and then they'll peel it off with their trunk and put it in their mouth. So they can actually use it for lots of different things. And sometimes they stick it in the ground to make a hole, and then afterwards they'll use their feet to dig a hole if they're looking for fresh water. So these elephants are very clever animals, and whatever they do when they're going around, they always think about it. And elephants like to think, and they also remember very, very long times, and they remember about everything. So while we're watching these elephants, let's send you down to Scott, all the way back in South Africa.
Now, I'm not too sure what she's feeding on still, but she's still chewing on something. And it's absolutely killing me not knowing what it is. The fact that she's been chewing for quite some time now indicates that it's either something very chewy or something quite big. Oh, can we see anything there? Any feathers? So tricky. Hello, Thandi. Hello, Senzo. And I'm not entirely certain what her moves are going to be. I'm hoping at some point she gets up and maybe goes for a drink to wash down her snack, and then possibly head off to go and look for a more elaborate snack, although I've got no idea how elaborate her snack is, but she has been chewing on whatever it is for quite some time. But who knows? I'm told it's, I guess, mainly when women are pregnant they eat strange things, but maybe also once they've given birth their desire to eat strange things continues. So maybe that's why she's chewing on who knows what. Still no sign of the cub whatsoever. But it could be anywhere. The thing is with this den site, her spot is where we can see her now. She's outside. She's like out on the veranda, so to speak. When she really wants to tuck herself away, she disappears completely, and we cannot get even the slightest of views of her. So, hard to be certain of how deep that cave is, but we do know that she certainly can disappear. Jason, you would like to know how old is this cub? And we're guessing somewhere around 5 or 6 weeks. But nobody's 100% sure as to when she exactly gave birth. But I think Tristan was following her movements quite closely, and her behavior heading into the same area time and time again indicated that she may well have given birth in an old termite mound. And I think James down into that termite mound in its entirety, but Tristan had kind of forecast that that's where he thought the den was, and I'm not sure. We must actually ask Tristan. He was around here
I only arrived here at the beginning of December, so I've only been here for the last 3 weeks. But 3 weeks prior to my arrival, I'm not too sure exactly what they saw. They could have seen suckle marks, Jason, which would have indicated that she had given birth around her nipples. But the guess, and I mean, even looking at the cub, the few glimpses I've seen, I would also guess it to be somewhere in and around that age. I wonder if we shouldn't... I don't think repositioning to our first spot's going to help us here. I think we just kind of have to stay put. We are in the best possible spot, at a safe distance, or at a respectful distance rather. We could creep forward about another 6 meters and look straight down onto her, but we're not going to do that. I think we'll be overstepping the boundary if we were to try that, so we'll just stay here. And it's so important that we are sensitive in times like this, because the future of this leopard cub is kind of, we are helping to mold it, and if we give it any negative